our final film this week, a rare 5-movie roster on Cinema Spotlight, is the 30th anniversary of Bad Boys, directed quite famously by Michael Bay, starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. This film has quite the legacy. Of course, it starts the career of Michael Bay. Of course, he was a very famous advertisement and music video director, but then became a powerhouse and has made billions and billions at the box office. The film also began a film series. There are 4 films now, one coming out as recently as last year, Bad Boys Ride or Die. Now, this was my first time watching Bad Boys, and I had an interesting experience with it, Reuben, because of course 1995 was a long time ago and the sensibilities have changed, action has changed. Really, I'd love to know your opinion, as I know it was your first time too.
It was. I don't know how I've gone through life not having seen Bad Boys, but I somehow have. And do you know, I think Michael Bay is an interesting director. I like The Rock. I think The Rock is really good fun, and I think he knows how to deliver action. And I think, from my point of view, to get to the heart of what Bad Boys is its cinematic spectacle on every level. I think he really delivers dollar signs basically at all times on screen, because he's great at making things seem big. And I don't just mean that literally, although he does. Somehow he's able to film a car like it's a behemoth, and perhaps it's from his advertising background. Proper, like, premium cinematic wowzers. Be it the cars, be it the guns, be it the, the chiseled abs of Will Smith. He is really, really, really good at making everything on screen look like $1 million. And it's because he has this, incredibly keen commercial sensibility. He's very finely attuned to how to make everything look good on camera. There's certainly a real, music video vibe to the whole film. I think it became very aped after the film came out. You've got this kind of everything's always so orange. The sky always looks vaguely sort of post-apocalyptic. I was pleasantly surprised by this film. I thought it might just be kind of meat-headed, but it did make me laugh. It's quite dumb. It's obviously had huge influence over the years on action. There was a whole sort of period, I would say, stretching to the late 2000s, so 2009, and it's secretly a kind of buddy cop, almost platonic romance, shaped things like Hot Fuzz. Obviously, there's that famous scene where they're talking about Bad Boys 2 in that. Bad Boys itself is a huge influence and definitely shaped the dialogue and the language of action cinema. So honestly, I was pleasantly surprised by this. I thought it was fun. I thought it was funny. It was decent, dumb fun, honestly. It's not going to change the world, although, do you know what? It kind of did, because it did usher in a new era of action filmmaking in a way. What did you think? Did you have an okay time with this too?
Yeah, I was sort of like you, concerned. This is Michael Bay's first movie, and knowing where some of his movies have gone in sort of the Transformers series and some of his more recent films, what is this going to be? What is the first installment going to be like? I was pleasantly surprised. There is a really strong chemistry between the two leads. They do seem like good friends, even though they're constantly bickering. They do seem like an old married couple. The odd couple, it kind of works really to its benefit, and I think this is Will Smith's first big film role, and obviously started a major career and a titan of Hollywood until certain events that he's currently on his apology tour for. I actually thought this film was enjoyable, but it did have those tropes. It did feel very 90s music video. Everything is bathed in, as you said, an orange, and then also strobe lighting everywhere. How no one has epileptic seizures or anything in these places. And everything's bathed in dry ice smoke so that the light carries through. Everyone's a bit larger than life and does very illegal things, but gets away with it because they're so cool. Yes, okay, it does have an outdated mentality, especially with the central two characters and their sort of platonic bromance. Oh, we're not gay, no, definitely not gay.
This is a film which is unintentionally massively homoerotic. It really reminded me of both Top Gun and Point Break, in both good and bad ways, but in that kind of unbelievably amped up version of masculinity that you get in the late 80s, early 90s, which is so aggressively heterosexual, it crosses all the way over to being very gay. And I really enjoyed that element to in it.
As I said, they're like an old married couple. I think Will Smith isn't fully formed. It's interesting to see him in a position where actually Martin Lawrence is almost the lead actor in this. He does more. He has a better arc and to be honest, maybe a stronger performance. Michael Bay has a penchant for stereotype, and there's only a few of those here.
All the women are stereotypes, aren't they?
That sort of becomes a detriment. Julie, the character in Witness Protection, but quite literally, they just watch over her all the time and she gets involved in the action. It's supposed to be quite traumatizing, yet there's a sequence where she's just being quite overly flirtatious to try and draw out the truth of Martin Lawrence's character pretending to be Will Smith's character. Well, she's just gone through extreme trauma, and yet she's still really quite annoyingly LA white girl stereotype with a small fancy dog, stylish wardrobe, probably soy milk and vegetarianism. It's kind of like typical upper class Los Angeles. She goes through an awful ordeal and then has these moments of just weird comedy that I guess is fine because the movie's not heavy at all. The stereotyping does go against its actual story, its telling. What type of film is this? It is a big popcorn movie, and the action is great. As you said, the amount of explosions are brilliant, and because it's not too muddy like, say, Transformers 2, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 9 or 10. But this is quite succinct, and you know what's going on. It's got great use of slow-mo, lots of slow-mo. If you took the slow-mo out, the film might be half an hour shorter. It works well because these tropes come from somewhere, and it does them well. You enjoy it because it is stupid and fun, and every gunfire shot sets off 10 million explosions. So
that's exactly what I was going to say. Is this also marks the first example of, I would say, the completely trademarked Michael Bay explosion, wherein it looks nothing like a real explosion, but they're always like little firework rockets. Do you know what I'm talking about? With the big streaking tails behind them. It's like, what explosion have you ever seen in real life that looks like that? But every explosion in every Michael Bay film since has had these big, fireworky explosions going off. That felt like a cinematic landmark worth noting. The jokes are good. There are some good quips. They get a lot of mileage out of Martin Lawrence and Will Smith having to pretend to be each other. I enjoyed it. I am kind of interested in watching more Bad Boys films, is what I would say. Bad Boys 2 is beckoning.
Bad Boys, what you gonna do? Well, you can go see it in the cinema or rent it to watch. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I wouldn't watch it again, but you're right, Reuben. Maybe I will watch Bad Boys 2.